Hi, this is Marta from Ruby Soup with Pearl Juice, and this is gonna just be a very short, kind of rambly vlog on the latest Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, Thor Ragnarök. Um, this is the third Thor movie. It stars Chris Hemsworth as Thor again, and Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Uh, and it basically just kind of takes off from where Thor 2 left off. Thor wants to go searching for Odin after it is revealed that Loki disguised himself as Odin so that he could be on the throne. But when they find Odin, it turns out that they have a long lost sister, Hela, played by Kate Blanchett, who after Odin's fall, she returns back from her imprisonment and is going to basically bring about the end of Asgard, and basically her whole thing is just that she wants to bring chaos and death to all over the world. And it is up to Thor and kind of Loki to stop her. And I am going to go into spoiler discussion on this film, so I'm going to give a very short thought here about what I thought of the movie. It was good. I really liked it. That it was very funny, and it was very lighthearted, and it was really fun to have a female villain in a Marvel movie. I think actually Hela is the first one so far, if I am remembering correctly, but I think she is the first female villain in this series. And it was also fun that they introduce a new kind of sidekick, Valkyrie, and she's a woman of color, which is great. These Marvel movies need a little bit more diversity, and Valkyrie is a very welcomed addition. And while the movie is not, like, considering that it's called Ragnarök, I think a lot of people might be a little bit disappointed with that the movie is so lighthearted and so comedic. But in fact, I think actually it is, I would say that the humor is what makes this movie good, because the first two movies were maybe a little bit too serious for their own good, and this one is more lighthearted. And it feels actually like even Thor becomes a lot more of a relatable character. Alright, and now I'm going to go into spoilers. So if you haven't seen the movie, stop the video and come back later. So where to start? I just have to say, when I was seeing this movie in the movie theater, I instantly thought when Odin said that, oh, you guys have a sister, and her name's Hela, and she is gonna come back now that I'm dying, and she's going to destroy everything. And I thought to myself, like, wow, this is the worst timing ever to drop that kind of bomb. Like, oh, come here, my sons, let me tell you, you have a sister. Yes, a sister, and not only a sister, she's bloodthirsty, and she's totally axe crazy, and she wants to kill everything, and she's gonna come back and destroy everything that you love now that I'm dying. I guess I should have maybe told you this before, but I didn't. Well, peace out. And I guess, like, people have joked before about how Odin kind of handled Loki's whole adoption thing very poorly, but I actually thought that this really took the cake. That not only did he neglect to tell his two sons that they had a sister, but he neglects to warn anyone about her coming back so that they can prepare for this kind of situation. And it kind of gives her an upper hand. And there's no reason for it. And also was that whole thing with Hela, is that there's, like, when there's that scene where Hela goes into one of Asgard's palaces, and she sees all these paintings, and she kind of destroys the paintings to reveal the original paintings of her and Odin conquering places and killing people, and she talks about how she was his executioner. I was actually legitimately thinking that, oh, they're going to actually show that she's not really telling the truth, that she's a bit biased here, that she's exaggerating, that her and Odin didn't really go and conquer all these places and kill a lot of people, and then all of a sudden one day Odin decided not to do that, that she's lying a little bit. But no, actually, that is never contradicted in the movie. She legitimately is like telling the truth, she's legitimately shown us telling the truth, which I thought was really, it's kind of a little bit of, I think, like, I mean, he's dead now, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but it always just seemed like such a mess in a way, Odin's character, and I think, like, this movie really is almost like a nail in the coffin, because it's kind of like, okay, he literally was like a warlord, and he kind of let his bloodthirsty daughter be an executioner, and then when things got out of hand, then he just locked her away, despite the fact that he kind of egged her on. And even that's kind of like whole thing, like, is like, I was thinking, like, yeah, it's not great characterization. And I guess, like, people would say, like, well, Thor turned out okay. Well, not really. Actually, Thor was really arrogant in the first movie. The only reason why he's a nice person is because he went to live on Earth for a while. So even there, I would say, like, no, actually, Odin wasn't even that good of a parent towards Thor. It was basically this Thor's human friends that taught him how to be a decent person. So that whole thing, I kind of wonder why they did that. And I think I don't know if it's a script problem or if Odin was like that in the comics. I haven't read any of the Thor comics, so comment down below and tell me if Odin is like that also in the comics, because I'm really wondering where this comes from. But Hela, oh my god, Cate Blanchett as Hela, it's just so fantastic. She's so hammy and she's so over the top, and like, she's also funny. She's not funny like the other characters, but she has like some really good lines, like when she says that, oh, I was the executioner, and was executioner, I mean that I killed people, but I also executed plans, but mostly I executed people, and it's it's really dark, but it's really funny. And I like that she was a legitimate threat, because, like, or that she was also, like, very memorable. Thor: The Dark World had that problem, was that the villain was very forgettable. And Hela is not forgettable at all. She's really memorable and she really sticks out. And she kind of has a really cool, like, helmet. She turns her hair into a deer horns like helmet. And so even her design is really cool. So that was really great. And I actually liked Valkyrie. I first was a little bit uncertain about her character, because I felt that they made her a little bit too unlikable, because she was kidnapping people and trading them into basically slavery, and I kind of thought that was like kind of so horrible. But then, like, when we learn her backstory, and when Thor is telling her, like, oh, but you should come back and fight for us because it's like your sacred duty, and she says very angrily, like, I don't want to do that anymore, I don't want to get involved with your family fights anymore. And when she talks about how she was the only one who survived out of all the Valkyries, because it was like a whole army of women, and she was the only one who survived. And how she says, like, even like so openly, bitterly, that I am tired of your family fights. That completely changed her character, and like, if you don't feel for her in that moment, there's something a little bit wrong, because it's so, I think, like, that it's also, it feels very real, like that's what someone in that situation would feel, and that they would have this kind of resentment. And she also has a point. I kind of really felt that a little bit, like I was joking about earlier, that, you know, even in the first Thor movie, when Loki was the bad guy, it was all family drama. So when Valkyrie is saying this, you kind of do feel like she has a point, that basically other people were screwing up and she had to face the consequences for them. And that was a really well executed scene, and it was really kind of really tugs at the heartstrings. And well, what else? Oh, and Thor and Loki. One thing that I think like the Thor movies have actually been a little bit juggling with this is that I would actually say that the first Thor movie I thought was okay. It had a lot of plot holes that were really hard to ignore, and in fact, Natalie Portman's character was really poorly written and kind of annoying and came off as kind of like whiny most of the time. And since she was the main love interest and you were stuck with her for a long time. And Thor the Dark World also kind of had the same problem with the villains and their motivation, that the script was kind of a mess. But the second movie kind of was already finding its feet a little bit, was that one thing that a lot of people that liked the movie enjoyed was the banter between Loki and Thor. And in this third movie, Thor Ragnarök, basically the whole movie is almost the banter between Thor and Valkyrie, and the banter between Loki and Thor. And also when the Hulk joins them, then the banter that they have was the Hulk. And the whole movie relies on that, and it works so well because all these actors have such great chemistry with each other, so the banter just kind of feels really natural. And I heard from some other reviewers that a lot of the dialogue was improvised, which that is amazing if that's true. And in fact, this is an example, like the scene where Thor is telling the story about how Loki would turn into a snake to trick him to come and look at the snake, and then turn into himself and stab Thor. Like, if that was improvised, like, that is such a well-timed joke and so well executed. People were applauding in the movie theater after that punchline. And if that was improvised, I mean, Chris Hemsworth should get an Oscar because that's just such well acting. And also just like perfect timing, and with jokes that's really difficult, and especially that kind of really long story where you really have to build up to the punchline. And like, no joke, people were applauding in the movie theater. And I kind of also liked Loki's redemption arc of sorts, that he became nice. And a little bit like I've mentioned before on this channel, I often don't like redemption arcs where the former bad guy doesn't have to get any kind of punishment. And while technically you could say that Loki doesn't get any punishment in this movie, he's been beaten up and smashed around and beaten up in Avengers and the other Thor movies, that I kind of would argue like, no, he's been the butt monkey for so long that it actually in this movie it makes sense when he gets his redemption arc. And
because he's so sexy.
Yeah, actually, I guess that might be one of the reasons the cameraman said that, oh, Loki got a redemption arc because he's very sexy. And I don't know if that's entirely true, but I went and saw this movie with a bunch of other girls, and one of the things that the other girl said when the credits rolled, and I turned to a girl to my left and I said to her, like, well, what did you think? And she said, oh, I liked it. And I especially like it that the brothers kind of made up and that they became friends. So definitely, yeah. So I think that's going to probably be a major appeal in this movie, that, I think people can relate to it, I don't have any siblings, but, even as an only child, family relationships are really hard. There's always a lot of tension in families, and those relationships are really difficult. So I think that's probably going to struck a chord with a lot of people. So, yeah. So anything else? Well, I guess no, nothing else. But I also know that they got an entirely new director for this movie. I can't remember his name. I'm going to put it in the description below. But I really liked I think the director that they got for this movie, he was really good. And I hope that if they make any more Thor movies, they're going to use the same director, because he was really able to get what was the core of, like, what really worked for Thor in these movies. So I apologize to the good sir. I don't remember his name, but whatever your name is, you're brilliant. Hopefully you get to do more of these kinds of movies. You should be very proud. Yeah, and I guess, yeah, this is gonna be a short vlog. Comment down below what you thought of the Thor movie, or if you have seen it at all, what you thought of the other Thor movies, or what you think of Marvel movies overall. And I'll see you next time. Bye.